Hey, Grim Chronicles fans, gather close, because today we're stepping into a world where blood was currency and human lives were the price of entertainment. It's a scorching October day in AD 52, and you're standing shoulder to shoulder with 40,000 Romans around an artificial sea, a marvel carved into the earth. The air reeks of salt water and iron, and below you 19,000 condemned men, criminals, war prisoners, slaves, stand knee-deep in crimson waves, their swords trembling in exhausted hands. They've fought for hours in a mock naval battle, clinging to Emperor Claudius's promise of mercy. The crowd's roars shake the stands, but something feels wrong. From his purple-draped box, Claudius's face is a mask. Then, imperial horns blare. Not the notes of pardon, but a call to slaughter. Panic surges through the men as Praetorian archers notch arrows along the arena's edge. This isn't mercy. It's theater, and you're witnessing one of Rome's most horrifying spectacles. Welcome to Grim Chronicles, where we unearth history's darkest truths, and today, we're diving into the terrifying arena acts of ancient Rome, shows that pushed human suffering beyond the pale. Let's start where it all began, at a funeral that sparked an empire's bloodlust. It's 264 BC, and you're at a funeral in Rome, not just any funeral, but one for the father of Decimus Junius Brutus Gaver. Incense hangs heavy in the air, the pyre draped in fine cloth, mourners weeping softly. But Decimus has something bold planned, something he calls his munus, his duty to the dead. 6 slaves step into a cleared space before the pyre. These aren't warriors. They're men who've worked the same fields, shared the same meals, slept in the same cramped quarters. Now they grip unfamiliar swords, their hands, calloused from plows, not weapons, shaking. Decimus's voice cuts through the hymns. Fight! Honor my father with your blood. The crowd stirs, uneasy. Human sacrifice? That's for barbarians, not Romans. Decimus insists this isn't sacrifice. It's sport, a sacred act. You watch the first pair circle each other, their breaths louder than the crackling pyre. One slave, let's call him Marcus, glances at the pyre, then at his opponent, a man he might have laughed with over a harvest. The math is brutal. Fight your friend or die anyway. Marcus swings, wild and desperate. Bronze meets flesh, and the crowd gasps. Not in horror, but in something new, something electric. Blood spills onto the sacred ground, and the mourners lean in. The widow, tears still wet on her face, now watches intently. By the time all 3 fights end, 3 men lie dead, 3 stand panting, drenched in their friend's blood. Decimus nods, satisfied. His father's spirit is honored. The survivors are led away, promised freedom. Someone whispers, "Beautiful." Another murmurs, "This has Roman dignity." That day something shifts. The mourners leave not with grief, but with a strange energy, debating who fought bravely, who showed skill despite no training. They're already asking when the next funeral will be. Within months, noble families copy Decimus, adding paired fights to their ceremonies, 1 pair, then 2, then 3. The excuse is always religious, a tribute to the dead. But you and I know the truth. They're coming for the blood. An elderly senator writes to his son, "I attended Quintus's funeral yesterday. The gladiator contests were unsettling, yet I can't stop thinking about them. There's something pure in those desperate struggles." His words spread through Rome's elite like wildfire. Munus takes on a new meaning, not just duty, but the gift of violence wrapped in piety. What started with 6 men in a dusty clearing is about to spiral into something far darker, and Rome's appetite is only beginning to grow. 50 years later, you're in the Senate, and the air is thick with ambition. Marcus Aelius Lepidus stands, sweat beading under his toga, arguing not about war or trade, but gladiators. 20 pairs, he insists. My opponent promises 15. The people expect more. The games have morphed from funeral rites into political currency. Every ambitious Roman knows votes are bought with blood. By 53 BC, a man named Gaius Scribonius Curio takes it to another level. He's not rich, not a war hero, but desperate to become consul. His solution, a spectacle that will redefine Rome. I'll build 2 wooden theaters back to back, he tells his advisors, eyes gleaming. Plays by day, then they rotate on pivots to form an oval, an amphitheater for gladiators. His architect protests, the engineering will bankrupt you. Curio doesn't flinch. Imagine 5,000 Romans watching 50 pairs of gladiators. Not for a funeral, just because. The Senate erupts when he announces it. Madness, old Cato shouts. Fighting without religious purpose is sacrilege. But Senator Publius rises, calm and calculating. The people love these contests. Why shouldn't the state provide what they desire? It's public welfare. The vote is unanimous. Democracy has just greenlit mass murder. Political careers now demand body counts. Julius Caesar, young and hungry, borrows crippling sums to stage 320 pairs of gladiators in silver armor. His rivals whisper about bankruptcy. The crowd whispers about his generosity. A historian calculates that reaching the consulship requires about 100 deaths. The Senate doesn't debate morality. They discuss logistics. Where to house gladiators, how to source prisoners, what makes a good sword. Cicero, the great philosopher, attends a game and writes, 3 hours, 60 deaths. The crowd was transported. I fear what we're becoming. His friend replies, but you attended, didn't you? Rome's found something darker than bread and circuses. Shared bloodshed creates shared identity. When 50,000 Romans scream as a gladiator falls, they become one. Easy to control, easy to lead. Beneath the arenas, a new profession emerges, bestiarii, the beast masters. You're in the cages now, deep under Rome's killing floors, where Titus Flavius has worked for 20 years. His notes are chilling. Lions need 7 days of starvation for reliable aggression. Bears? Only 4. They're naturally angrier. Leopards are tricky. They play with prey too long, and the crowd gets bored. It's a science, balancing hunger to ensure violence without lethargy. One disaster in 62 AD proves why. A well-fed lion lies down next to a Christian prisoner and sleeps. The crowd riots, and the beast master is fed to his own animals the next day. Prisoners catch on, sharing survival tricks in the dungeons. Marcus the thief, a 3-year veteran, teaches newcomers. They spray you with animal blood to smell like food. Roll in your own waste first. It might confuse them. The beast masters adapt, mixing honey and lamb's blood to trigger attacks. One keeper's journal notes, Subject 12, lamb's blood and honey. Bear's reaction immediate and thorough. Recommend for future use. Suicide becomes a problem. Condemned men stealing the crowd's entertainment by killing themselves. A warrior in cell block 3 scratches a note into the wall. I die Roman free. Authorities respond with round-the-clock watches, forced feedings, bound hands. A guard named Quintus writes to his wife, today I saved a man from hanging himself. Tomorrow I'll watch him fed to bears. I don't sleep well anymore. Then comes a citizen's suggestion. Use criminals' families as motivation. Promise their children will be spared if they fight well. It's adopted within a week. Rome's cruelty is now a machine, refining itself with every death. and it's about to get even bigger. You're standing at the edge of a massive basin, wider than the Forum, deeper than a 3-story building. Julius Caesar's purple cloak whips in the wind as he surveys his masterpiece. Not a battlefield, but an arena for naval warfare. 40 ships, his engineers confirm. 4,000 prisoners, 2,000 per fleet. The condemned, hauling dirt for months, thought they were digging a reservoir. They didn't know they'd built their own grave. Caesar's plan is to recreate the Battle of Salamis. Greeks versus Persians, history as lethal theater. The prisoners, Gauls and Germans, are dressed as ancient warriors, given brief training on rowing and ramming ships. Some drown in practice, the trainers shrug. On the day of the spectacle, 40,000 Romans pack the stands. The water's pristine blue, but not for long. Horns blare and the fleets collide. With splinters, men scream, bodies hit the water. A Gaul named Brennies, dressed as a Greek hoplite, spears his cellmate, now a Persian. By sunset, only 3 ships float, 200 men left of 4,000. Caesar grants them pardons, and the crowd roars for his mercy. As slaves drain the pink water, pulling corpses from the muck, Caesar's already planning a permanent venue, and his heir will make it a reality. Augustus Caesar, Julius's heir, doesn't just build on his uncle's vision. He etches it into the earth. You're at the Naumachia, an artificial lake 1,800 feet long, 1,200 feet wide, fed by an aqueduct built solely for death. Engineer Vitruvius's plans are a chilling marvel. Water flow rates to fill the basin in 6 hours, drainage systems to clear bodies, platforms to hold 200,000 spectators without a crush. The water's 12 feet deep, enough for naval combat. Shallow enough to retrieve corpses. But prisoners dive for ballast stones to drown themselves. The solution: sealed compartments. Even suicide is engineered away. The aqueduct cuts through sacred groves, cemeteries, farms. One displaced farmer curses, "May every gallon carry blood instead of water." His words ring true when Augustus stages the Battle of Actium, reenacting his own victory. 6,000 prisoners, many veterans of the real battle, fight in a blood-choked lake. The water fouls so badly that oars snag on corpses, the stench driving spectators back. Engineers work overnight, installing pipes to pump fresh water while draining the contaminated. Death is now a science, with manuals dictating flow rates based on casualty estimates. You're in the Colosseum's grand opening in AD 80 under Emperor Titus. 50,000 spectators have seen beast hunts and gladiator fights. But now comes something new, mythology turned lethal. A Greek prisoner named Alexios, a musician, is dressed as Orpheus, with a golden lyre and laurel crown. In the myth, Orpheus's music tames beasts. Alexios plays desperately, his fingers dancing over strings, singing of love and nature. The crowd hushes, children whispering, "Father." Orpheus charms all animals, but a 400-pound bear, starved for 8 days, charges. For one moment, it pauses, confused by the music. Then training kicks in. Man equals food. Alexios plays until claws rip through him, the lyre's strings snapping with his screams. The poet Martial writes, Orpheus charmed nature in old stories, but in Caesar's arena, the bear was unmoved. Perhaps our beasts are deafer than myth. Rome hasn't just killed a man. It's murdered a story, twisting sacred tales into scripts for slaughter. Nero takes cruelty to new heights. You're in his gardens at sunset, where poles are spaced for optimal viewing. Condemned prisoners are stripped, coated in wax, wrapped in tunica molesta shirts soaked in pitch, sulfur, resin. The mixture burns hot but slow, ensuring a spectacle. Guards plug their noses during preparations. Marcus Flavius, an executioner, writes, "The worst wasn't the burning. It was painting pitch on bleeding flesh. Many guards drink to cope." Marcus requests a transfer. Nero times the ignitions for sunset. Human torches lighting his parties as guests discuss poetry below screaming bodies. One victim, a Christian seamstress named Claudia, speaks as they prepare her. "You dress me in flame, but clothe yourselves in shame. My pain ends tonight. Your guilt burns forever." Her guard, Gaius, hesitates, hands shaking. Claudia burns silently, never screaming. Gaius disappears that week, leaving a note. "I've painted my last innocent. Let Rome find other hands." Tertullian watches and writes, "The blood of martyrs is the seed of the church." The Colosseum's hypogeum hums, a maze of chambers and pulleys. You're in section 7, where slaves work in twilight, operating elevators that lift lions, pulling ropes for scenery, controlling pipes for floods. Marcus Quintus, a supervisor, logs, "Tuesday, elevator 3 jammed with a lion. Lost 2 men. Blood seepage gumming gears. Workers call it the performance." Never speaking of the deaths they enable. During a flood test, 20 slaves drown in a sealed corridor. Engineer Gaius Maximus hears their screams but is stopped from saving them. 20 slaves or disgrace before Caesar? Gaius adds emergency latches. They're removed to preserve water integrity. The workers are as trapped as the condemned, their hands stained by the machine they serve. Rome's philosophers aren't immune. Seneca, the Stoic, attends the noon executions. Untrained criminals given rusty blades, forced to kill until one survives. "It's butchery," he writes. "The victor is kept for another slaughter." Yet he returns, confessing, "I come home more cruel, more inhuman." He sees guilt on the faces of mothers, merchants, priests, yet they return. His student Lucan writes, "Master, I quoted your warnings about the game's corruption. Everyone agreed. Then we all went to watch." Seneca replies, "We've made vice into virtue, brutality into bravery." The hypocrisy spreads, Rome's elite nodding at wisdom in the morning, cheering death by afternoon. The persecution of Christians marks a new low. After Rome's Great Fire in AD 64, Nero needs scapegoats. Christians are perfect, mysterious, peaceful, numerous, but they don't play the part. Traditional prisoners beg or curse, giving the crowd an emotional arc. Defiance, desperation, death. Christians pray, sing, smile. An announcer snaps. They refuse to entertain properly. They die like they're going somewhere better. Rome doubles down, designing new tortures. If burning won't break them, try beasts, crucifixion, drowning. Perpetua, a young mother, writes, "Tomorrow I fight beasts, but I've already won. My true life begins at death." She hands her infant to a Christian in the crowd, then faces leopards with arms spread wide. The crowd expects hysteria. They get transcendence. Blandina, a slave from Gaul, endures hot irons, beasts, a stake, repeating, "I am a Christian. We do nothing wrong." Her executioner, Taurus, hears her say, "You look tired, friend. I forgive you." His sword shakes. It takes 3 strikes. That night, Taurus joins Rome's Christian underground, writing, "She called me friend while I killed her. What God teaches such love?" Each execution backfires, turning spectators into believers. The hypogeum slaves keep the machine running. You're below the sand, where 200 men work pulleys and pipes in near darkness. They lift lions, flood arenas, raise scenery. Marcus Quintus logs. Blood seepage contaminating gears. Sand replacement denied. Workers avoid naming the horrors above, but accidents expose the truth. During a flood test, 20 slaves drown in a sealed corridor. Gaius Maximus tries to save them, but his supervisor prioritizes the emperor's show. The workers' world is as cold as the arena above, their hands as bloody. Emperors push for bigger spectacles. Claudius demands a Naumachia where water rises during the fight, forcing 19,000 men to battle while drowning. Engineers protest, it's never been done with a full arena. The messenger shrugs. That's the point. The system is ready, the condemned are not. They fought, saluted, believed in mercy. Now they'll face the ultimate betrayal. It's AD 52, and you're back at that artificial sea. The water red with blood. The 19,000 men, exhausted, soaked, wounded, stand waiting for Claudius's pardon. His voice booms. You've entertained Rome, but the show needs a finale. Resume combat. Die gloriously. The betrayal hits like a wave. These men, who followed every rule, are now fodder for a final act. Archers fire not to kill but to wound, forcing the fight. Swords swing with dead arms, ships ram without strategy. Some swim for shore. Spears push them back. Others dive to drown. Guards in boats force them up. A Greek named Theron climbs a mast and shouts, Romans, you watch us die for sport, but we had families, names. I am Theron of Athens, and I name you murderers. An arrow silences him mid-sentence. The crowd cheers, finally some passion. By sunset, not one of the 19,000 lives. Claudius calls it mercy, a meaningful death. Historians call it a triumph. But the crowd leaves subdued. Parents carry children past pipes running red, past slaves fishing corpses from the water. Senator Cassius writes, Today, we didn't watch men die. We watched Rome's soul drown. We've reached the end, grim Chronicles fans. And it's time to face Rome's legacy. Claudius's Naumachia wasn't just a spectacle. It was a mirror. Those 19,000 men, betrayed after fighting for mercy, showed Rome's heart. A civilization that turned humanity into content. Theron's cry, I name you murderers, lingers in the minds of some. Cassius's words haunt. The appetite grows with feeding. What happens when nothing satisfies? Rome finds out. The games grow until emperors bankrupt the treasury, until armies falter, until the empire collapses. Seneca saw it clearest. Each spectacle of suffering makes us more cruel, more inhuman. He watched ordinary Romans, mothers, merchants, priests, become spectators, their guilt washed away by the next fight. His own complicity haunted him. I know it's wrong, yet my feet carry me to the amphitheater. Rome's arenas, from funeral fights to naval massacres, were a machine that consumed everyone. Prisoners, workers, spectators, philosophers. Christians like Perpetua and Blandina turned death into testimony. But Rome kept innovating. Tunica molesta, drowning battles, mythologized executions. Each step made cruelty normal, virtue inverted. Today, we shake our heads at Rome's brutality, but Seneca's warning echoes. Our Colosseum is digital, our complicity in views and clicks. We binge violence, turn tragedy into content, consume suffering through screens. The 19,000 who died in Claudius's lake believed in rules, in mercy. They learned too late that when entertainment trumps humanity, no one escapes the arena. Their bodies were burned in mass pyres, their names erased, just a line in Claudius's log. Exceptional games. But their warning lives. The slide from empathy to appetite happens one spectacle at a time. So, Grim Chronicles fans, what do you think? How close are we to Rome's arena today? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that subscribe button, and join us next time as we uncover more of history's darkest truths. Until then, keep seeking the shadows.